Okay, so what we'll do is structure each lesson on a bit following the tradition of our teachers. So they've always sort of started with a brief talk and then done a guided meditation, and that works best from what I've attended and experienced. I think we'll follow on with that tradition. And yeah, we're going to work through the Lamb Room following the Foundation of All Good Qualities by Tsongkhapa. And it's a brief Lamb Room prayer that you can use for for meditations, or just as a prayer to recite every day. His Holiness recommends this the Dalai Lama recommends this as a text to meditate on every day, and he does so based on this text daily. So then the kind of topical discussion beforehand, I'll base on a collection of teachings, mainly the Middle-length Lamb Room. I've received commentary on this, and also a few other short Lamb Room texts that I've received teachings from and all transmissions of. So yeah, we'll kind of follow along with that, and we'll start with some prayers just to sort of set a motivation. So what we'll do is we'll be reciting these prayers and thinking of, so, the standard bodhicitta. We want to study the Lamb Rim to benefit all sentient beings. And that's why we're here, to develop our understanding and knowledge and meditate and gain experience. And then we can gradually work our way up to perfect, complete enlightenment. And then be the best benefit for all sentient beings. So we'll do the prayers very briefly, and we'll just start with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, because all of the teachings come from Shakyamuni Buddha. So based on that, we'll visualize in the space in front the field of merit, field of refuge, whichever you prefer, and just mainly Shakyamuni. That's the main central figures, the main focus. And if you can visualize the full field of refuge, that's brilliant. Otherwise, you can visualize the Nalanda Masters or the 84 Mahasiddhas, or any lineage lamas that you feel a connection to, just as long as you kind of feel that they're present. We'll just recite this initial verse 3 times. So, Teacher Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect on knowledge and good conduct, Siddhartha, know of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Teacher Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Siddhartha, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, straight, make offerings, and go for refuge. Teacher Bhagavan Tathagata Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect knowledge and good conduct, Siddhartha, know of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Then we'll offer a mandala. We'll just do the short mandala. Om Sashivo Ki Yushin Meto Sangye Shindu Mize Ruwai Yukuna Dajina Chopasho Jetsun Lama Dhamma Kirna Hi Chopun Kala Yen Se Chu Zing Tree Jita Sambe Tu Jin Mahal Jai Jo Hi Cha Adu So Irangu Mandala Kamni Atayati. And finally, most important, is we'll take refuge. Sangye Chodam Shani Chodam Jancho Batu Dani Kyapsuchi Ragi Chonyin Gipe Sonangi Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chodam Shani Chodam La Jancho Batu Dani Kyapsuchi Ragi Chonyin Gipe Sonangi Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Sho Sangye Chonam Shani Chonam La Chancho Badu Dani Kapsuchi Tagi Chonyen Yebe Sonam Ki Drola Penche Sangye Drupa Sho. So yeah, that will sort of begin the talk stage. So I'll start with a brief quote from Mahasiddha Svaha. It said, taking to heart what your Lama has said is like seeing a treasure in the palm of your hand. So I just read that today and thought it's quite a good place to start. Seen as the first topic of the foundational good qualities is guru devotion. So as you see, the advice we receive from the gurus, we really have to take to heart and apply these teachings. Because without these teachings, we wouldn't stand a chance in escaping samsara. These teachings have kind of led us to the path and allowing us to practice the individual liberation vehicle of the Shravakya Yana, if that's where you're inclined, or the Mahayana vehicle, or even for those with the inclination to enter the Vajrayana through receiving the initiation and the oral transmissions and explanations. So we really then have to take these pith instructions we receive from the Lama and apply them. So the pith instructions can be sutra and tantra. They're just our practice advice. So it's really important that we actually apply these from the Guru. So the first verse of the foundation of all good qualities is, the foundation of all good qualities is the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correctly relying on him as the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and practicing with great effort, please message me to rely upon the Guru with great respect. So there's a few translations. There's also the foundation of good qualities, the kind and perfect pure Guru. Correct devotion to him is the root of the path. By clearly seeing this and applying great effort, please bless me to rely upon him with great respect. So we can see straight away, really, we're saying that relying on the Guru is the root. This is where we start, because if we think back to how we hear the Dharma, as much as maybe in the West nowadays, we can pick up a book and read that, and that's our first introduction to the Dharma. Especially traditionally, it all came from a teacher. And even now, you can read books and get an understanding, but the real understanding comes from receiving all teachings. So, based on that, we need to rely on the Guru. And how do we do that? And why do we do that? So to start off with the why, because for most people that's the most difficult part of why we're devoting ourselves to the Guru in such a way, especially for people that don't practice in the Tibetan tradition. It's very unusual and causes a lot of misunderstanding. So it's quite important we get this correct understanding of this topic. So the Lamrim texts, especially the Lamrim Chenmo and the middle length Lamrim by Lam Tsongkhapa, as well as texts such as Dujun Rinpoche's Torchlight and the Way to Freedom, which is a commentary on the preliminary practices, but still includes these essential points for Lamrim. They all enumerate 8 benefits of reliance on the Guru. So the first one is you will come closer to Buddhahood. So because by relying on the Guru, we practice their instructions. And if we practice their instructions, we're obviously moving towards enlightenment. We're practicing the Dharma in the correct manner. And then 2, you'll please all the Buddhas. And this is because the Guru embodies and encompasses all the Buddhas. So we'll come on to more of that later, but you can kind of see the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are very pleased when sentient beings practice the Dharma. They want to see us escape samsara, so they're very pleased when we do this. And the third is you'll never lack a spiritual teacher in future rebirths. So because we create the cause and conditions to meet more and more Dharma, by practicing the Dharma, we create the causes to meet the Dharma again. And then if we devote ourselves to the Guru correctly, we make a positive connection with that teacher. And you meet the same teacher life after life. You can sort of see certain lamas, you maybe meet them, and you kind of have a special feeling inside. Like being struck by lightning or sudden. This is someone you know, and someone you're meant to receive teachings from. So in the 4th benefit, you'll not be reborn in the lower realms. Because if we devote ourselves to the Guru and practice the Dharma, that means we are practicing virtue and abandoning non-virtue. So we're cutting off the causes of rebirth in the lower realms, the non-virtuous actions. And we'll come more onto them in a couple of weeks on karma. So then the 5th benefit, so you're not overpowered by outer and inner hindrances. So you can kind of think the blessings from the Gurus really here to help. And there can be lots of obstacles come up in our practice. Whether it's going to receive teachings or trying to do retreat. I can think retreats I've done where there's been obstacles, or just pujas that I've taken part in with the lamas where there's obstacles. If you make requests to the Guru, especially when you're doing retreat, it can make these obstacles easier to manage and we can kind of get through. And yeah, lots of my teachers have said this. There's stories of people I know where they were traveling on a train through India, going to His Holiness Dalai Lama's teachings in Bodh Gaya. And this particular train line between Delhi and Bodh Gaya is very dangerous. And this journey took 2 days, and it was only meant to take 12 hours because there was another train crashed in front. My teacher was saying he was sat on the train making prayers, trying to think of the Guru and requesting that the Guru gives him blessings to survive this journey. And then when he got to Bodh Gaya, he met his Guru, and his Guru, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, turned around and said, "Oh, you made it. Yeah, you did survive." So we can see right there that Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave blessings that helped remove any obstacles to that journey. And then onto the 6th one, so your mental afflictions and your afflictive emotions, bad habits, and are curtailed, but they're reduced by the strength of your Guru devotion. So when you're around your Guru, if you are very careful and watch your mind, you should be more careful around your guru anyway. Your afflictions reduce, and there's blessings from being around these high lamas. If you attend any teachings with really any sort of well-respected lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, if you enter the temple complex of Sukla Kang in Dharamshala, there's a kind of blissful feeling as you walk in. And that's the power of the holy objects there. And then when His Holiness comes out to his residence to teach, it's amplified. It's so much more powerful. There's no distraction from the Dharma teachings, in my mind. Yeah, of course, ask a question when you...
So, did you already go to His Holiness's place in Dharamsala?
Yeah, I did. I've been once. It's really special. There's a lot of holy objects which provide these amazing blessings. And then His Holiness as an object is just 100 times more powerful. His peace radiates from him. So as he walks past, you can really feel it. It's incredible. So yeah, that's kind of the point, meaning this benefit comes from that. Whereas Holiness kind of gives these amazing benefits from just being near him. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche was the same from what people have told me. My other gurus that I met in person, Ling Rinpoche has a similar kind of strength. It's really common amongst these lamas to be like this. And the seventh benefits, you achieve your short and long-term aims. So you think by practicing the Dharma, we accumulate virtue. And by accumulating virtue, we create positive potential to do things. So really it's talking about our long and short-term aims in the Dharma. Because by practicing the Dharma, things progress. But just in general, if you have a lot of merit about yourself, you'll find your wishes come, as long as they're in accordance with the Dharma, these wishes are fulfilled a lot easier. So people with great guru devotion who maybe struggled for finding jobs, but because they need to support themselves to practice the Dharma, and that's their motivation. They're not thinking, I need a job for the status of this job or that job, or to meet someone, anything. They're thinking, I need to have a job so I can have money to support myself to attend Dharma teachings and go on retreat. And with that motivation, you accumulate merit. And it's also a very beneficial act. So your positive potentials and positive karmas are going to help with that. And the final benefit is your completely accumulation of merit and wisdom. So by practicing according to the Guru's advice, obviously you're going to accumulate merit and wisdom. You make mandala offerings, you offer tolmas, butter lamps, anything like that. You meditate on emptiness, or just any Lamrim topic, any teachings, you thereby accumulate merit or wisdom. And these are the two that we need to attain enlightenment. So then maybe some quotes here. There's Nagarjuna who gave a nice quote on Guru devotion. He says, if a person steps off the porch of a house situated on the edge of a cliff, though he may not wish to fall, he must. In the same way, if one practices Guru devotion, one will certainly gain spiritual insight. So really, Nagarjuna here is talking about this first point, especially that you'll come close to Buddhahood. That obviously, if we step off a cliff, we fall. In the same way, it's obvious. Yeah, of course. It's obvious if we practice the Dharma, we're going to, if we follow the Guru's advice in accordance with the Dharma, so we thereby practice the Dharma, we'll come into greater merit and then progress on the path. So it's going to happen. It's not a question of if and more a question of when. I'll send them later on. That might be easy. And another one. So my teachers have kind of said it's permissible to quote tantras to a degree in these kind of teachings because we're not talking about the details, but becoming quite inspirational. So there's a quote in the Guru Samaja Tantra where it says, even if one has committed all the 10 non-virtuous acts and the 5 heinous crimes, it's still possible to attain enlightenment. But despising one's guru brings an absolute stop to all progress. So you think, like, Angulimala attained enlightenment and he killed over 100 people. He even wanted to harm the Buddha. But he turned his life around by practicing what the Buddha said precisely. So in the same way, we can do that, it's not beneficial once you've received the Dharma teachings to go out and commit non-virtue. That's apparent. But we can think previously in our life we've committed non-virtue, in previous lifetimes we've committed so much non-virtue. So if we practice according to the Guru's advice, we're going to progress like Angulimala did. But if we despise the Guru, then we're not going to practice according to their advice. Obviously, this is different because it's coming from Tantra, so the Guru devotion is a bit different in Tantra compared to the Sutrayana, the sort of sutra-based path, which we're kind of basing this explanation off. So from a sutra perspective, you can just say, if you despise your guru, you're not going to follow their advice because you don't think they're worthy of following. So if you're not following their advice, you're not practicing the Dharma, so you won't progress. So it's in that kind of way that we have to think. So we've kind of been over the benefits, and the Lamrim details the opposite, the disadvantages of not relying on the Guru correctly. Most of these 8 are really just the opposites. I'll just briefly run through them. So the Lamas disrespect to all the Buddhas. You remain in health as many eons as the number of moments you were in anger with the master. So this one's quite extreme. I think it's less about guru devotion and more about the danger of anger. We always say anger is the fire that destroys all virtue. And depending on the object of your anger depends on the strength of the negative karma. So you think if your guru is a Buddha, if you have a moment anger at, say, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, it's an emanation of generosity. So the Bodhisattva, the negative karma you generate from having anger to a Bodhisattva is so much more than the negative karma you accumulate from a moment of anger to an ordinary being, a normal human being or an animal or anything. So this is kind of where it's coming from. If you have a teacher that is realized, because most of these texts, we're kind of talking a time where teachers were more realized. I suppose it's different now in the degenerate age where there's more and more people teaching the Dharma and not all have realizations. I don't have realizations, and here we are. But it's kind of true, even amongst geshes and lamas, tempos and so on. There are some amazing geshes and tempos with realizations who do teach, but there are some that teach but don't have realizations. Doesn't mean to say they're not qualified to teach. They've studied extensively and practiced extensively, but they don't have that direct realization that makes them an higher being. They're still suitable as a teacher, but there's a difference. So in a sense, there's that, but then from a other perspective, you see your teacher as a Buddha, or if you, in that kind of way, I think it's all mental from your mind. So really, it's more harmful to you as well. And then the third, you will not achieve enlightenment even if you practice Tantra. So we've just seen that in that quote from the Q Samaja Tantra. Your practice of Tantra will only result in a hell there. So because this is a Tibetan text, it's kind of assumed you're going to practice Tantra afterwards. So everything comes with a bit of a Tantra twist on it. So to briefly summarize, this is to do with the Vajrayana being a bit like a snake in a bamboo pipe. You can go up or you can go down. There's no allowance of lateral movement. So you either go up to full enlightenment or you go down to health, because you either practice correctly and accumulate virtue and wisdom non-stop, or you practice incorrectly. And this doesn't just mean getting things wrong and, slight degeneration of vows, which is normal. We're kind of talking about total abundance of the Vajrayana, holding the view of an inherent self, thinking your guru's an ordinary being and got no skill or realizations. These kind of issues, they cause the extreme negative karma you experience in Tantra. So, and then you won't develop fresh qualities, and the ones you have degenerate. So basically, you're not going to progress, you're not going to practice the Dharma and make progress. And then many things you wish for in life, many things you do not wish for in life will befall you. So if you have lots of non-virtue, which if you're not practicing the Dharma correctly, you're not accumulating virtue, same virtue, you kind of suffer more. And this suffering can be illness, anything like that, early death. There's all sorts it can be. And in future life, you'll wander aimlessly in the lower realms, because by not practicing the Dharma, you're not making that connection to meet the Dharma again and again. We're not meeting the Guru time after time, so you're not going to be able to progress to find a human rebirth or any rebirth in the higher realms. And then finally, you won't meet with spiritual friends in future lives. So again, you're not creating the causing conditions to meet the teachers again and again. And these aren't just sort of things that are made up by the Tibetans. These points come from the sutras. These are well-established doctrine. So now we're kind of seeing why we need to devote ourselves to Guru.
First,
Yeah.
I'd like to know because in the Lamrim it is described how to correctly develop faith in the Guru, but apart from disrespect, distrust, and anger towards the Guru, we don't really know what is incorrect devotion. Because I had a question a few days ago, and I wondered if one isn't applying exactly an advice from one's guru, is this considered as bad devotion because of laziness or?
Well, I'll come to correct how to devote yourself correctly later, but I think if you're trying your best, that's what really matters. Sometimes the Guru gives advice and it's not something you can do right there and then. The Guru might say you need to do a 3-year retreat, but you have commitments for the next so many months, and that's fine. You can just do your best. And if the Guru says you need to meditate on this every day, but some days you don't have time, you may be ill and you can't, again, it's not the end of the world. You can kind of, as long as you're trying your best, that's what matters.
Okay.
So the most important part of Guru devotion is finding the correct Guru and a reliable one. So the Ornament of Mahayana Sutras sort of details this. As it says, a spiritual teacher with discipline, calm, complete peace, more excellent qualities, with effort, rich in scriptures, who has thoroughly realized suchness, is eloquent, loving, and never disheartened, on that one rely. And then Dromtonpa, the disciple of Atisha, says, for someone to be called a Mahayana Guru, he must practice boundless understanding when he explains, and when he practices, he must show what is a benefit and directly meaningful when the teachings are on the way. So these are the 10 qualities we should look for in a Guru. So when it says, who has thoroughly realized suchness, this has a few meanings. So the ideal meaning of this is they have a direct realization of emptiness. The ideal guru is an Arya being because they can cut through everything and they know exactly what to do to benefit us. But this is very rare. Maybe let's say in the past this was more common. In India at the time of the Buddha, you can read the sutras of how many arhats and bodhisattvas achieve enlightenment just by hearing the Buddha teach. Even in India, if you think at the time of the Mahasiddhas, how many great beings we had. And in Tibet in the past, it was so much easier to meet an Arya teacher than it is now. So, and because as an ordinary being, we cannot tell who has realizations. Only a realized being can do that. So you're kind of in a difficult position. So the only option we have is to rely on someone who has an understanding of emptiness based off scripture and reasoning. Because if you ever study mind and cognition, the way you have realizations, you can start off with like doubt, and you progress all the way up to inference. And this is right below a direct valid cognition. So in inferential cognitions, more than most people have still. And that's again a really good point. Or at the very least, they have a scriptural understanding of them and some practice. You don't want someone that's never meditated on emptiness. They just studied because it's dry knowledge. It's not got the life of the teachings. So as long as someone has some experience practicing, meditating on emptiness and studied with gurus, they qualify for this requirement. And then, in this degenerate age, it's hard to meet a qualified teacher. So Tsongkhapa says, even if it is difficult due to the times to find someone who has the complete set of characteristics, like that it says you should not rely on anyone whose faults are greater or whose faults and excellent qualities are equal, but on someone whose excellent qualities exceed the faults. So basically, you shouldn't rely on a guru that they might have a good understanding of Dharma, but they don't practice. They commit the non-virtuous actions all the time. You kind of want someone that's virtuous and practices well. And then the collection of indicative verses. This is really important. It says, people relying on someone inferior sink. Those relying on one of their peers stay the same. Those who rely on the foremost will achieve excellence. Therefore, you should rely on your superiors endowed with ethics, complete peace, and even more superior wisdom. If you rely on any such laws, you'll even end up ahead of them. So kind of seeing that the most essential point is the teacher has better understanding and is more experience practicing than you do. And you kind of see qualified teachers, these great lamas, still go and receive teachings from their teachers. His Holiness would receive teachings from Ling Rinpoche, Troshig Rinpoche, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, all these masters of all the traditions. He's an emanation of is a bodhisattva, an emanation of generosity. He doesn't need these teachings, he does it for our benefit. But at the same time, from his own side, he's seeing that these teachers have more benefits than him. So they held transmissions that he didn't. And that is enough to say that they are superior in that regard. He went to Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche to receive Dzogchen teachings because he wasn't sure he'd received the Dzogchen transmission from the fifth Dalai Lama's Terma. So in the same way, we can apply this and we can think, especially as a beginner, nearly all teachers have better understanding than ourselves. But sometimes you'll see teachings being offered at a centre by someone who has significantly less experience and teachings than you, and you can kind of use your judgment. Have you received teaching on this topic before? If you've not, then it'll be a benefit still. But if you have, and if maybe you've received it multiple times, you might want to consider whether it's right for you to attend. Okay, so up to the third point of guru devotion. And the third point kind of follows on. So we've seen why we need to devote ourselves to Guru and who we're going to devote ourselves to. So the last part is how. So you think we need to devote ourselves in two ways. We need to devote ourselves with our body and with our mind. Because they're the main approaches, but you can also devote yourself to speech. You can use the three doors. So we'd start off really with mind, because this is the most important. All of practicing the Dharma is less about external kind of features. It's all about the internal changes we make. So in the same way, the key part of Guru devotion is the internal change we make. Because you can outwardly sweep your Guru's house, make offerings to the Guru, but have a mind that doesn't have respect for them or thinks, well, if I do this, people will think I'm a good practitioner.
I'm sorry.
So then we can kind of see, and you see all the time people who call it Dharma dress up. They outwardly dress themselves up as a Dharma practitioner. They wear fancy robes, Tibetan clothes, and drink butter tea and eat sampa and wear all the malas and so on. But they don't have any internal change. Their afflictions haven't reduced. So you can wear all the externals. You can do all these outward activities. You can make, there are people who make butter lamp offerings, but they don't have the right mindset. There's merit accumulated still because offering, even just reciting the prayer of butter, so the Mame Mon Lam Tisha, butter lamp aspiration prayer, and lighting the lamp, it accumulates merit. But if they're attached to samsara, and I think they'll get a good reputation in the community from doing this all the time, it's not pure merit, it's contaminated. It's not very beneficial still. So to devote ourselves mentally, we need faith and respect in the Guru. So faith kind of stems from 4 points. The first is it's taught traditionally in the Tibetan system first. It's a bit harder for Westerners really to deal with, and because it's not what we're used to. But the first one is Vajradhara states the Guru is Buddha. So the Tantras tell us that the Guru is a Buddha. And that's why you have faith in him, because the Tantras say so. Now, obviously, there's a bit circular logic almost. You have faith in the Tantras because the Guru says the Tantras are good. The Tantras say you have faith in the Guru. So it can be quite difficult for people to accept that. But if you do have faith in the Vajrayana and you accept that Shakyamuni Buddha taught Kalachakra and Guru Samaja or Guruyava, either way, there's Tantra taught by Shakyamuni and Vajradhara taught Tantras and so on. If you accept that, accepting the verse isn't a problem. But if you have doubt, well, not necessarily doubts, but if just accepting a quote isn't enough, this is what the other three are for. So the second one is we don't have the merit to see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, so they emanate a form we can see. So you can think of the story of Asanga with Maitreya, how he did retreat for years and didn't see Maitreya. So he gave up and he went outside and he saw the water drop on a rock. So he went back. And again, he just left, done a retreat for another period of years, didn't see anything, so left again and saw someone cutting through I can't remember quite what it was, the story about, and then he went back into retreat and he left, again disappointed, not seen anything. And he was just walking back to the village. There was a dog laying there on the road. He decided he needs to help this dog because it had a wound on its leg with maggots inside. But he thought he couldn't harm the maggots to pull out the dog's leg. So he used his tongue to lick the maggots out of this dog's wound. And as soon as he'd done that, the dog transformed to Maitreya. So, and he asked Maitreya why I haven't, I've been done retreat for 12 years and I made requests, why haven't I seen you? And Maitreya went, well, I was always there, you just didn't have the merit to see me. And then Asanga was very impressed, and he had Maitreya, so he put him on the crown of his head and carried him on his shoulders. And as he walked into the town, the villagers just saw him walking with nothing on his shoulders, except for one old woman who saw him carrying the dog over his shoulders. So we can see right there that if you don't have the right merit, you just don't have the chance to see Buddhas. People see His Holiness as an ordinary being. They don't have the merit to see him as a bodhisattva and an emanation of generative. They don't have the right mind for that. So this is quite important. So basically, we cannot see Buddhas in that way. We're too deluded. So the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that want to benefit us, they emanate a coarse form that we can see. And that's the Guru. And the third point is the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always working for our benefit. So the Buddha said he can't wash away our sins. There's no washing away of our negative karma. All he can do is teach us the Dharma to do it ourselves. So in the same way, you think the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas want to remove all our suffering from us, but they can't just wash it away, they need to teach. So they're obviously teaching us. And who teaches the Dharma to us other than the Guru? And then finally, the fourth reason is we cannot be sure of our appearances. So once again, you can think of the story of Maitreya and Asanga, or even His Holiness with Kunulama Rinpoche, who was a great Sakya master and gave His Holiness the transmissions of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, and he composed the great text on Bodhicitta and taught that to His Holiness as well. So once His Holiness was going to teach in Bodh Gaya, and as he was walking from his residence to the teaching ground, he walked past a group of beggars in the street, some Hindu sadhus, and he stopped and prostrated. And everyone asked, what was he doing? And there in the middle of these sadhus was Kunulama Rinpoche, sat, a bodhisattva, realization of emptiness and bodhicitta, sat in amongst some Hindu beggars, and no one could tell the difference. So His Holiness saw because he knew he was his guru, and His Holiness has much clearer vision than we do. But we can see there that people were walking past a bodhisattva and they didn't know, and he was even in human form. So we might have doubts over whether the guru is a Buddha, but we kind of have to think to ourselves. From the Mahayana perspective, you can think the guru is like a Buddha. And you don't need to think they are a Buddha. That's more important in Tantra. But from the common Mahayana, sort of Sutrayana perspective, you can just think they are like the Buddha. And they're like the Buddha because they teach the Dharma and constantly working for our benefit. So once we kind of have this faith, we need to have respect. And the respect's actually more important here. So how do we develop this respect? Because it's quite important to generate. So we need to think of the kindness the Guru shows us. They teach the Dharma. I always think how emptiness was impenetrable to me. I couldn't understand emptiness whatsoever. I reached the emptiness section of the Lamrim Chenmo and just had to shut the book and put it aside because I couldn't even begin to think about it. And then my first teacher, Serme Kenrimshi, Kishtashi Seri, was teaching the essence of true eloquence. And in one session, kind of removed this obstacle. I could think more about emptiness, and through his great kindness, I've been able to study emptiness and practice well. So for me, that's a prime example of the kindness of the Guru. Without him, I'd be stuck with no possibility of escaping samsara. But you can think of all my teachers, I might have had an intellectual understanding of the teachings, but my main teacher, who I received many teachings as sutra from, and a couple of Vajrayana teachings, Geshe Tenzin Namdak. Without him and some of the transmissions he's provided me, again, the teachings wouldn't be alive in my mind. Sort of how to perform pujas, generating bodhicitta, or at least the feeling at the start of bodhicitta. I don't have any realizations like that, but it's all down to his kindness. And all my gurus bestowing great teachings. And then you can also think of the blessings and the oral transmissions. So the oral transmission is really important to receive. It's said by Samdong Rinpoche that when we become a bodhisattva on the path of seeing, I think, you recall all Dharma teachings you received in all your past lives. And that's on the basis of these oral transmissions. You just remember every text you've ever received a transmission of. So it's really important we get these oral transmissions. Not just because we preserve that lineage in this way, but when you reach this point, you'll remember it. And that is the most beneficial thing you can do. And the blessings from the Guru make the mind more subtle. It's easy to have realizations. And the final kindness that they really show us is in the material support. Whether it's medicine, money pills, blessing cords, down to kind of practice advice and individual advice. I can always think of the kindness my teachers have shown me and sort of telling me what I need to practice and what isn't as important at the moment to come back to later. And even offering you statues and financial support on retreat. These kind of things that you need to practice. So you can think that they're the most coarse form of kindness who's shown you, but still incredible kindness. So the final point of this really is to think how they're kinder than the Buddha. Because Guru Shakyamuni isn't here, right? He's not emanating a form on this planet. So he can't really benefit us in the same way. So that's kind of what makes the Guru kinder. Because the Guru's here right now, teaching us and giving transmissions. So we're so fortunate. So then if you direct yourself with speech, kind of speech is a bit, you can think you say praises of your Guru. Whether it's reciting praises like Lamit Sema, if you think Tsongkhapa wrote that's a praise to Rendao. These kind of praises that we can recite to our Guru. Or just sort of talking about their good qualities with other people. You're kind of devoting yourself with speech to them. And then finally with our body. So there's kind of three ways. The minimal way is devotion with offerings, offering gifts, especially money, anything like that, physical offerings to the Guru. It's devotion because if it's done with this mind of faith and respect, it becomes an extremely powerful path. And then the middling is offering service to the Guru. So helping them, whether it's translating for them, helping compile teachings, just any kind of service you can offer for your Guru. So often think Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to talk about people that volunteer for FPMT. How if he's one of their gurus, straight away they're offering service to the Guru all the time. And so I've served as my teacher's attendant while volunteering at a centre for me. It allows you to accumulate so much merit because you can do all these activities that you couldn't normally do. It's really beneficial. But the most beneficial is obtaining the guru's practice advice and putting it into practice. And this is the one that the gurus love the most. You know, the gurus don't care about physical offerings. They don't want you to give them gold and so on. They'll accept it to allow you to generate merit, but they're not so bothered about it. The main thing that the gurus want is for us to attain enlightenment. So because of that, we must practice what they teach. And then you can go back to your gurus and say, I've meditated on this and this is my experience. And that's offering the realizations. And that's what pleases them the most. You know, many times I've been able, a few times I've been able to offer this to my guru. And one time I couldn't give anything material, but I could offer what I'd practiced and what experience I'd had. And he said to him that was much more meaningful than any financial offering that I may be able to practice in this way. So we can kind of see that that's another aspect of the kindness of the guru. They don't want to put us under financial burdens. They don't want to make us suffer too much. Well, they don't want to make us suffer at all, but you know, these often talk about people being a bit too soft almost in the West, a bit too gentle. People don't like to undergo hardship to receive teachings. You know, of course it's good, to be comfortable. You can't focus if you're comfortable. But people from Tibet, they'd walk for months to receive teachings, initiations. And there's monks in the monasteries that will go without food to donate the last of what they have to their teachers. We don't need to go as far as that. But obviously we have to be aware of making sure we have enough money to survive while giving. So that's why giving practice is important and it really pleases the gurus. So with that, we kind of reached the end of the talk session. And we'll start the practice. That's okay if you can't attend. What I'll do is we can do it in the next time. We'll just do brief as a Lamrim meditation and I'll send a document on how to do it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
It's just the main point of a Lamrim meditation is you start with refuge, like always. You then offer a mandala to the guru and Shakyamuni to kind of request blessings. So this is using an uncommon Lamrim method. So this comes from two Lamrim texts, the Swift Path and the Easy Path, and they're kind of getting into the Vajrayana. So part of it involves requesting purification and blessings from the guru and the Buddha. So that's involved. And then you recite each verse and you pause after each verse and you just sit for a minute and contemplate the meaning, kind of going over the essential points. And then you draw a conclusion and you sit on that conclusion for a minute and then you move on. Now, you don't need to spend long in daily life doing it. You can kind of do 30 seconds on each topic. But you can do a retreat where you focus each session on one part and you spend 10-15 minutes meditating on that topic.
Okay.
Then you reach the end of the prayer and you dissolve Shakyamuni Buddha into yourself, however you want to finish it. You dedicate and that's it. So it's really powerful. You can do that in as much time or as little time as you want. So I'll send the document and then that's that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And we can stop there. So thank you, Tenzin, for coming.